The massive alien warship Dominion's Edge hung in the darkness of space like a steel cathedral, its hull stretching 15 kilometers from bow to stern. Admiral Kethvar stood on the command bridge, his forearms crossed behind his back as he stared at the blue-green marble floating in the void ahead. "Earth. Scan complete, Admiral," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Yexna. Her tentacles danced across the holographic displays. The human homeworld shows massive industrial activity, orbital stations, defensive platforms, and... She paused, her three eyes widening. "Sir, their fleet is enormous." Kethvar's mandibles clicked together, a sign of amusement among his species, the hegemony. "How enormous?" "Over 12,000 ships, Admiral, ranging from small fighters to dreadnoughts nearly half our size." The bridge fell silent. Even Kethvar's confidence wavered for a moment. The hegemony had conquered 47 star systems. They had crushed the crystalline architects of Vega. They had broken the machine minds of the Sigma Collective, but they had never faced a fleet this large. "Impossible," growled Commander Thexor from his station. The reptilian officer's scales shifted color, a display of aggression. "Humans are a young species. They achieved faster-than-light travel, only 60 years ago. How could they build such a force?" Kethvar turned to face his crew. The bridge buzzed with nervous energy from a dozen different alien species, all united under the hegemony's banner. "Because, Commander, we underestimated them. The same mistake that cost the Vorthan Empire their lives." The mention of the Vorthans sent a chill through the bridge. 6 months ago, a Vorthan scouting fleet had encountered human vessels near the Centauri system. The Vorthans had attacked first, as was their nature. Not a single Vorthan ship had returned home. "Admiral," Yexna called out, her voice tight with concern. "The human fleet is moving, they're taking formation." On the main display, the tactical view showed thousands of green dots converging on their position. The human ships moved with precision that spoke of countless hours of training and coordination. Kethvar's third eye, the one that saw beyond normal vision, began to glow with a soft purple light. Through it, he could sense something that made his blood run cold. The humans weren't afraid, they were eager. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he commanded. A moment later, a human face appeared on the screen. The creature was young by human standards, with short brown hair and piercing blue eyes. Most unsettling of all, the human was smiling. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said, her voice carrying across the vast emptiness between their ships. "You are in violation of Earth's territorial space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Kethvar stepped forward, his imposing figure filling the screen. At 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and natural armor plating, he had intimidated countless enemies. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Hegemony Third Fleet. Your species will surrender, unconditionally, or we will take your world by force." The human's smile widened. "Admiral, with all due respect, you brought 1 ship. We have 12,000. Perhaps you should reconsider your position." "1 ship has always been enough," Kethvar replied. "The Dominion's Edge has firepower equivalent to 1,000 of your vessels." "Then this should be interesting," Admiral Chen said. "You have 10 minutes to withdraw. After that, we can't guarantee your safety." The transmission ended. Kethvar stared at the blank screen for a long moment. In his 2 centuries of military service, no enemy had ever given him an ultimatum. "Admiral," Yexna whispered, "their fleet is still advancing. They're not backing down." Kethvar looked at the tactical display. The human formation was beautiful in its complexity. Layered defensive screens, fast attack wings, and heavy bombardment. Groups all moving in perfect harmony. It was the kind of coordination that took decades to perfect. "How long have they been preparing for this?" he muttered to himself. But there was no time for speculation. The humans had given him 10 minutes, and 8 had already passed. "All hands to battle stations," Kethvar commanded. "Prepare the quantum disruptors. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." As the bridge crew scrambled to their positions, Kethvar couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The humans were too confident, too prepared. It was as if they had been expecting this encounter, And deep in his gut, the veteran admiral began to suspect that the hegemony had walked into a trap. Chapter 2. First Contact. The first shots were fired exactly 10 minutes later. The human fleet struck like a thunderbolt, their smaller ships darting in and out of weapons range while their heavy cruisers pounded the Dominion's edge with everything they had. Kethavar's ship shuddered under the assault, but her shields held firm. "Return fire!" Kethavar roared. "Show them the power of the hegemony." The Dominion's edge's main quantum disruptor charged with a sound like reality tearing apart. When it fired, a beam of pure destructive energy lanced out toward the human fleet. The weapon that had shattered planets and turned entire armadas to cosmic dust. The humans scattered like leaves before a storm, but not fast enough. The beam caught a group of human destroyers in its path, and then something impossible happened. The ships didn't explode. They didn't disintegrate. Instead, they simply flickered and vanished, reappearing moments later several thousand kilometers away, completely unharmed. What in the void was that? Commander Thexor snarled. Lieutenant Yexna's tentacles worked frantically over her console. "Unknown, sir. Our sensors show the ships were definitely hit by the disruptor beam, but somehow they avoided all damage." Kethavar's third eye blazed, brighter. Through it, he could see energy patterns unlike anything in the hegemony's databases. The humans weren't just using faster-than-light drives, they were manipulating space-time itself in ways that should have been impossible. "Analysis," he demanded. "Sir, it appears they're using some form of micro-wormhole technology," Yexna reported. "They're literally stepping out of normal space-time for brief moments." The tactical display showed the human fleet regrouping with impossible speed. They moved like a school of fish reacting to threats before those threats were even fully formed. "Admiral," came a voice from the communication station, "we're receiving transmissions from the human fleet. But sir, they're not coming from the ships we can see." "Explain." "The signals are originating from coordinates that show empty space. It's as if there are ships there, but our sensors can't detect them." Kethavar felt a chill run down his spine. Cloaked ships. The humans had cloaked ships, and the hegemony had no idea how many. The battle raged for hours. The Dominion's Edge was the most powerful vessel in the hegemony fleet, equipped with weapons that could crack moons and shields that had withstood the combined assault of entire alien armadas. But the humans fought like nothing Kethavar had ever encountered. They used tactics that seemed to predict his every move. When he tried to target their command ships, they had already repositioned. When he attempted to break their formation, they flowed around his attacks like water. It was as if they could see the future. "Sir," Yexna called out, her voice shaking, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the human fleet. It looks like they're preparing to fire simultaneously." On the display, every human ship began to glow with the same strange energy Kethavar had sensed earlier. 12,000 vessels, all charging their weapons at once. "Impossible," breathed Commander Thexor. "No species has that kind of power coordination. The energy requirements alone would—" He never finished the sentence. The human fleet fired as one, 12,000 beams of coherent energy striking the Dominion's edge simultaneously. The ship's shields, which had never failed in 2 centuries of warfare, shattered like glass. Alarms screamed across the bridge. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles. The lights flickered and died, leaving only the emergency illumination casting eerie shadows across the command center. "Damage report!" Kethavar shouted over the chaos. "Shields down to 18%, came the reply from the engineering station. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We're venting atmosphere." "How are they doing this?" Thexor demanded. What kind of power source could coordinate that kind of simultaneous attack? Kethavar was wondering the same thing when Lieutenant Yexna suddenly went rigid at her station. Her 3 eyes rolled back, showing only white. And when she spoke, her voice had changed completely. "Admiral Kethavar," she said in perfect hegemony standard, though her mouth didn't move in sync with the words. "This is Admiral Chen. I apologize for the unconventional communication method, but we need to talk." The bridge fell silent. Every member of the crew stared at Yexna, whose body had gone completely limp except for her mouth. What have you done to my officer? Kethvar growled. She's unharmed, came the reply through Yexna's lips. We're simply borrowing her neural pathways for a moment. We've found that direct mind-to-mind communication prevents misunderstandings. Mind-to-mind? Kethvar's voice was barely a whisper. That's impossible. Telepathy is a myth. For your species, perhaps. But humans have been developing our psychic abilities for quite some time. It's how we coordinate our fleets so effectively. Every ship, every captain, every crew member is linked through what we call the collective consciousness. The implications hit Kethvar like a physical blow. A species that could share thoughts instantly across vast distances. No wonder their tactics had seemed prescient. They were literally thinking as one. We know why you're here, Admiral, the voice continued through Yexna. The hegemony conquers worlds, enslaves populations, strips resources. You've done it 47 times before, but Earth is different. Different how? Kethvar asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. Because we've been preparing for you for 60 years. Ever since we achieved faster-than-light travel and discovered we weren't alone in the universe. We knew that eventually, someone would come to take our world, so we prepared. The main display flickered to life, showing tactical readouts that made Kethvar's blood run cold. The 12,000 ships he could see were just the beginning. Hidden throughout the solar system were weapons platforms, automated defense networks, and fleets of ships using technology so advanced that the hegemony's sensors couldn't even detect them. You wanted to know how we built such a large fleet. In only 60 years, the voice said. The answer is simple, we didn't. We've been building it for much longer than that. That's impossible, Kethvar protested. You only achieved FTL 60 years ago. We achieved noticeable FTL 60 years. Ago, came the correction. We've actually had the technology for over 2 centuries. We just kept it secret while we explored the galaxy and learned about species like yours. We knew you were coming long before you knew we existed. The weight of the revelation settled over the bridge like a funeral shroud. The humans hadn't just been preparing for an invasion, they had been preparing for this specific invasion. They knew about the hegemony, they knew about their tactics, their technology, their weaknesses. What do you want? Kethvar asked. Initially, we wanted you to withdraw peacefully, but now that you've attacked us, we have a different proposal. Surrender your ship and crew, and we'll allow you to return to hegemony space with a message. What? Message? Through Yexna's borrowed voice, Admiral Chen's tone became deadly serious. Tell them that Earth is off limits. Tell them that humans are not to be underestimated, and tell them that if they send another fleet, they won't get a warning shot. The communication ended abruptly, and Yexna collapsed at her station, unconscious, but breathing. The bridge was silent except for the sound of damaged systems sparking and the distant wail of emergency alarms. Kethvar stared at the tactical display, watching 12,000 human ships maintain their perfect formation around his crippled vessel. For the first time in his long military career, he was completely out of options, but something nagged at him. Something about the humans' behavior didn't add up. If they were truly as powerful as they claimed, why offer terms? Why not simply destroy the Dominion's edge and be done with it? The answer, when it came to him, was more terrifying than anything he had yet considered. They weren't showing their full strength. This massive fleet, these impossible technologies, this demonstration of power, it was all just the tip of the iceberg. The humans were holding back. The question was, what were they saving their real weapons for? Chapter 3. The revelation Admiral Kethvar had seen many things in his 200 years of life, but he had never seen a human ship from the inside. The transport that came to collect him was sleek and elegant, nothing like the brutal functionality of hegemony vessels. As he was escorted through its corridors, Kethvar marveled at the craftsmanship. Every surface seemed to pulse with a faint inner light, and the air itself felt alive with energy. His escort was a human woman named Lieutenant Commander Martinez. She was small by Kethvar's standards, barely reaching his chest, but she moved with the confident grace of a seasoned warrior. Admiral Chen is waiting for you in the observation deck, Martinez said as they walked. I should warn you, she's going to show you some things that might be disturbing. More disturbing than being defeated by a species we thought was primitive? Kethvar asked. Martinez glanced up at him with something that might have been pity. Yeah, more disturbing than that. The observation deck was a vast chamber with transparent walls that provided a panoramic view of space. Admiral Chen stood at the center, her hands clasped behind her back as she gazed out at the stars. She was older than she had appeared on the screen, with silver threading through her dark hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of difficult decisions. Admiral Kethvar, she said without turning around. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Did I have a choice? There's always a choice, Chen replied. You could have chosen to fight to the death. Most hegemony commanders would have. How do you know what most hegemony commanders would do? Now Chen did turn, and Kethvar saw something in her eyes that made his blood freeze. It was knowledge. Deep, comprehensive knowledge of things she shouldn't have been able to know. Because we've been watching you for a very long time, Admiral. Much longer than you might think. Chen gestured to the transparent wall, and it flickered to life, displaying a star map that Kethvar recognized immediately. It showed the hegemony's expansion over the past 3 centuries, system by system, conquest by conquest. The Altair system, Chen said, pointing to a red dot on the map. Conquered 112 years ago. Population, 4 billion Rithians. Status extinct. Another dot lit up. The Barnard Star colonies conquered 68 years ago. Population, 12 billion humans. Wait, did I say humans? Yes, I did. Kethvar's 4 eyes widened. That's impossible. Humans were confined to Earth 68 years ago. Were we? Chen asked. Or were we already spreading throughout the galaxy, establishing colonies, watching and waiting? The star map zoomed in on Barnard's star, showing a thriving system of planets and space stations. In the corner of the display, a date stamp read, established 2387, over 150 years ago. The Barnard colonies were some of our first off-world settlements, Chen continued. When your forces arrived, we had to make a choice, reveal ourselves and risk exposing our growing presence throughout the galaxy, or sacrifice 12 billion of our people to maintain the illusion that humanity was still confined to Earth. The implications hit Kethvar like a physical blow. You let us kill 12 billion of your own people. We made the hard choice, Chen said, her voice heavy with old pain. Those colonies volunteered for the sacrifice. They knew their deaths would buy time for the rest of humanity to prepare. How many? Kethvar whispered. How many what? How many human colonies are there? How many systems have you secretly occupied? Chen's smile was cold as winter. Lieutenant Commander Martinez, would you display the real map, please? The star. Chart changed, and Kethvar felt his legs go weak. Where before there had been scattered red dots marking hegemony conquests, now there were thousands of blue dots scattered throughout the galaxy. Human colonies, human outposts, human fleets, all hidden, all waiting. We've been in the galaxy for over 2 centuries, Admiral. We learned early on that the universe was a dangerous place, full of species like yours who took what they wanted by force. So we adapted. We became very, very good at hiding. Kethvar's third eye began to glow as he processed the information. The Vorthan fleet that disappeared near Centauri, they encountered one of our patrol fleets. We offered them the same choice we offered you. Withdraw peacefully or face the consequences. They chose to fight. What happened to them? What happens to all species who threaten humanity with extinction? Chen said simply. They ceased to exist. The observation deck fell silent. Kethvar stared at the star map, trying to comprehend the scope of what he was seeing. Humanity hadn't just been preparing for invasion. They had been preparing for war on a galactic scale. Why? Are you showing me this? He asked finally. Because you're going to carry a message back to the Hegemony High Command, Chen replied. And that message needs to be very, very clear. She gestured again, and the star map zoomed in on a section of space that Kethvar knew well. It was the Hegemony's core systems, their most heavily defended territories. The map showed them in red, just as they should be. But surrounding them like a noose slowly tightening were thousands of blue dots. "We've been surrounding your territory for decades," Chen said. "Every system you've conquered, every world you've stripped of resources, every population you've enslaved, we've been watching. We've been learning, and we've been preparing." "Preparing for what?" "For justice, Admiral. The hegemony has committed genocide on a scale that defies comprehension. 47 civilizations wiped out, trillions of sentient beings dead. Someone has to answer for those crimes." Kethvar's mandibles clicked together nervously. "You're planning to attack the hegemony?" "We're planning to end the hegemony," Chen corrected. "The question is whether we do it the easy way or the hard way." She turned away from the star map and faced Kethvar directly. "Here's our offer. The hegemony will cease all aggressive expansion immediately. You will withdraw from all conquered systems and allow the surviving populations to rebuild. You will make reparations for the damage you've caused, and you will submit to international oversight to ensure you never again threaten another species with extinction. And if we refuse?" Chen's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "Then we will remove you from the galaxy entirely, not just your military, your entire civilization. Every hegemony world, every hegemony colony, every hegemony ship will be neutralized." "You're talking about genocide," Kethvar said, his voice barely above a whisper. "No, Admiral. We're talking about pest control. The hegemony is a cancer that is spread throughout the galaxy. If it can't be cured, it must be cut out." Lieutenant Commander Martinez stepped forward. "Admiral, we've prepared a demonstration to help you understand the seriousness of our offer." The transparent wall flickered again, now showing a view of empty space. But as Kethvar watched, ships began to appear. Not just a few ships, thousands of them, tens of thousands. Ship designs he had never seen before, technologies that shouldn't have existed. "This is just one of our reserve fleets," Chen said casually. "We have 17 others stationed throughout the galaxy. Each one is capable of sterilizing entire star systems if necessary." The ships on the display began to move, forming complex patterns that spoke of coordination far beyond anything the hegemony had ever achieved. They moved like a single organism, responding to unseen commands with perfect precision. "How is this possible?" Kethvar asked. "The resources required to build such a fleet? We've had 2 centuries to prepare, Admiral. 2 centuries to build, to plan, to perfect our technologies. While the hegemony was busy conquering and destroying, humanity was learning and growing." Chen moved to stand beside him, both of them gazing out at the impossible fleet. "Do you know what the greatest advantage of being underestimated is, Admiral? It's that your enemies never see the killing blow coming." "This isn't just about Earth, is it?" Kethvar realized. "This is about the entire galaxy." "Now you're beginning to understand," Chen said. "Humanity has appointed itself the guardian of galactic civilization. We will not allow species like the hegemony to continue their reign of terror." "And what makes you think you have the right to make that decision?" Chen's eyes hardened. 12 billion of our people died at Barnard Star. 50 billion more died in hidden colonies throughout the galaxy. The hegemony has already declared war on humanity, Admiral. We're simply choosing to fight back." The fleet on the display began to fade from view, but Kethvar knew they were still there, hidden in the dark spaces between stars, waiting, watching, ready. "You have 30 days to deliver our message to the hegemony high command," Chen said. 30 days for them to begin their withdrawal from conquered territories. If they refuse..." She didn't need to finish the sentence, the implications were clear. "One last question," Kethvar said as Martinez prepared to escort him back to his ship. "How long have you been planning this?" Chen was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the stars. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries. "Since the day we first looked up at the night sky and wondered if we were alone," she said. "Since the day we realized that if we wanted to survive in this galaxy, we would have to be stronger, smarter, and more ruthless than anything else out there." "And what if you're wrong? What if the hegemony refuses your terms?" Chen's reflection in the transparent wall smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then the galaxy will learn what happens when humanity stops holding back. As Kethvar was led away, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just witnessed the end of everything he had ever known. The hegemony had ruled through fear and superior firepower for centuries, but now they faced an enemy that had been preparing for war longer than most civilizations had existed, and humanity, it seemed, had been very, very busy, while everyone else thought they were just a minor species clinging to a single blue world. Chapter 4. The emergency session of the Hegemony High Command convened in the Great War Chamber of Hegemonia Prime, the capital world of their empire. Representatives from dozens of member species filled the massive amphitheater, their various forms creating a bizarre tapestry of galactic civilization united under the hegemony's iron fist. Admiral Kethvar stood at the center of the chamber, still bearing the scars from his encounter with the human fleet. Around him, the greatest military minds in the galaxy listened with growing unease as he delivered his report. "Impossible," snarled General Vekthar, the hegemony's supreme military commander. His crystalline form sparkled with angry energy. "A single species cannot possess such power. You must have miscalculated their numbers." "I showed you the sensor logs," Kethvar replied. 12,000 ships, Admiral. 12,000 coordinated with precision we've never encountered." "Sensor logs can be faked," interjected Chancellor Mordesh, the political head of the High Command. "Holographic projections, phantom signals. The humans could have created an illusion." High Arbiter Jelkoth, the ancient being who served as the hegemony's ultimate authority, raised one of his 6 hands for silence. The chamber fell, quiet immediately. Jelkoth had ruled the hegemony for over 500 years, and his word was absolute law. "Continue your report, Admiral," Jelkoth commanded, his voice echoing through the chamber like distant thunder. Kethvar took a deep breath and activated the holographic display. The star map appeared, showing the scope of humanity's hidden presence throughout the galaxy. Gasps and exclamations rippled through the assembled representatives. "This is what they showed me," Kethvar said. "Human colonies and outposts throughout the galaxy, hidden for over 2 centuries. They've been watching us, learning our tactics, preparing for this confrontation." General Vekthar's crystalline form flared brighter. "Even if this map is accurate, it changes nothing. We have conquered 47 star systems. Our fleets number in the hundreds of thousands. One species, no matter how well prepared, cannot stand against the might of the hegemony." "General," Kethvar said quietly, "they destroyed a Vorthon fleet without losing a single ship. The Vorthons were warriors from birth, trained from childhood for combat. The humans didn't just defeat them, they erased them so completely that we never even found wreckage." The chamber erupted in arguments and debates. Some representatives called for immediate military action, while others urged caution. The cacophony of voices grew louder and more heated as the minutes passed. High Arbiter Jelkoth raised his hand again, and silence returned. "What were their term?" he asked. Kethvar straightened. "Complete withdrawal from all conquered territories. Preparations for damages caused, submission to international oversight, and cessation of all aggressive expansion." "Unacceptable," Jelkoth declared. "The hegemony does not negotiate with lesser species. We take what we need when we need it. This is the natural order." Chancellor Mordesh leaned forward. "Perhaps we should consider their offer, High Arbiter. If their claims about their military strength are true." "Their claims are irrelevant," General Vekthar interrupted. "No single species can challenge the hegemony. I propose we assemble the Grand Fleet and demonstrate the futility of human resistance." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Grand Fleet was the hegemony's ultimate weapon, over 300,000 ships drawn from every member species. It had never been defeated in battle. "Very well," Jelkoth announced. "General Vekthar, assemble the Grand Fleet. We will show these humans the price of defying the hegemony. Admiral Kethvar, you will serve as tactical advisor given your experience with human capabilities." "High Arbiter," Kethvar said carefully, "I strongly advise against this course of action. The humans are not bluffing. Their technology is beyond anything we've encountered." Your concerns are noted, Admiral, Jelkoth replied dismissively, but the hegemony has never yielded to threats, and we will not begin now. 2 weeks later, the Grand Fleet assembled in the Proxima system, just outside human-controlled space. It was the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history, 312,000 ships representing the combined might of the hegemony. General Vekthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, surveying the vast armada through the main display. Ships of every conceivable design floated in perfect formation, their combined firepower capable of shattering planets. Impressive, isn't it? He said to Admiral Kethvar, who stood beside him. 300,000 ships, Admiral. Let's see the humans match that. Kethvar said nothing. He had been studying the sensor readings for the past hour, and something was bothering him. The system appeared empty. No human ships, no defensive platforms, nothing but the cold void of space. Sir, reported the tactical officer. Long-range sensors show no human presence in the system. No ships, no installations, nothing. They're here, Kethvar said quietly. They're just not showing themselves yet. General Vekthar laughed, a sound like grinding crystal. Perhaps they finally realized the futility of resistance. Admiral, set course for the Sol system. We'll finish this at the human homeworld. Oh. Grand Fleet began to move, 300,000 ships accelerating toward Earth. It was a sight that would have terrified any other species in the galaxy. The combined wakes of their engines lit up space like a brilliant aurora. They were halfway to Sol when the humans finally showed themselves. It started with a single ship appearing directly in front of the Grand Fleet. Not a warship, a simple transport vessel barely 100 meters long. It hung in space like a minnow facing a school of sharks. One ship? General Vekthar said incredulously. They send one ship against the Grand Fleet? The transport opened a communication channel. The figure that appeared on screen was Admiral Chen, looking exactly as composed as she had during Kethvar's visit. Greetings, Hegemony Fleet, she said calmly. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You are in violation of the treaty boundaries established at the Proxima Accords. Withdraw immediately. General Vekthar stepped forward, his crystalline form blazing with indignation. There are no Proxima Accords, human, and you are in no position to make demands. Actually, Chen replied, the Proxima Accords were signed 6 hours ago by representatives of 43 galactic civilizations. The hegemony was not invited to participate. Impossible, Vekthar snarled. The hegemony controls those civilizations. Chen's smile was cold. General, I think you'll find that many of your former subjects have had a change of heart. Would you like to see the signatures? The display split, showing a document covered in alien scripts and seals. Kethvar recognized many of them. Species that had been hegemony allies for decades, all formally declaring their independence and alliance with Earth. This is meaningless, Vekthar declared. Words on a document cannot stand against the Grand Fleet. You're right, Chen agreed. Words alone are insufficient. That's why we've prepared a demonstration. She raised her hand, and something impossible happened. Ships began to appear. Not dozens or hundreds, but millions of them. They materialized out of empty space around the Grand Fleet, surrounding the massive hegemony armada completely. Every ship was sleek and elegant, bearing the blue and white insignia of Earth. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion erupted in chaos. Alarms screamed as tactical officers tried to process what they were seeing. The numbers were incomprehensible. Over 15 million human ships, each one broadcasting the same energy signature that had so mystified Kethvar during his first encounter. Status report, Vekthar roared. Sir, we're completely surrounded, came the panicked reply. 15.7 million contacts and counting, they're still appearing. How is this possible? Vekthar demanded. Where did they come from? On the main screen, Admiral Chen maintained her calm demeanor. General, humanity has been preparing for this moment for over 2 centuries. Did you really think we would reveal our full strength during a first contact scenario? Kethvar felt his legs give out. He collapsed into a nearby chair, finally understanding the scope of what they faced. The fleet that had defeated him at Earth, those 12,000 ships, had been nothing more than a local patrol. The humans had been holding back their true power all along. You have one final opportunity to withdraw, Chen continued. Leave hegemony space immediately. Disband your fleets, return to your homeworlds, and live in peace. This is your last warning. General Vekthar's crystalline form flared with desperate anger. The hegemony does not yield. All ships open fire. The Grand Fleet responded to his command, 300,000 ships unleashing their weapons simultaneously. The combined firepower could have sterilized entire star systems. The human ships didn't dodge. They didn't raise shields. They simply weren't there when the weapons reached them. Every single shot passed harmlessly through empty space. 15 million human ships had vanished between one moment and the next, leaving no trace of their presence except for the readings still showing on hegemony sensors. Where did they go? Someone whispered on the bridge. The answer came from Admiral Chen, whose image remained steady on the main screen, despite the impossible disappearance of her fleet. "We're still here, General," she said softly. "We're just not where you can see us anymore." And then, one by one, the ships of the Grand Fleet began to vanish. It started with the outer perimeter vessels. The Blade of Conquest, a hegemony dreadnought that had never known defeat, simply faded from existence like a ghost at dawn. Its crew didn't even have time to send a distress signal. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. "What's happening?" General Vekthar screamed, his crystalline form flickering with panic. "Report!" "Unknown, sir," came the terrified reply from the tactical station. "Ships are disappearing from the fleet. No weapons fire detected, no explosions, they're just vanishing." The disappearances accelerated. Entire squadrons winked out of existence, in perfect synchronization. Cruisers, destroyers, support vessels, all gone without a trace. The Grand Fleet, which moments before had numbered over 300,000 ships, was being systematically erased from reality. Admiral Kethvar watched the tactical display with growing horror. The vanishing ships weren't random. There was a pattern to it. The humans were taking the fleet apart piece by piece, removing threats in order of their strategic importance. "Admiral Chen," Kethvar said, stepping toward the communication screen. "What are you doing to our ships?" Chen's expression remained unchanged. "We're relocating them, Admiral. Every ship, every crew member, every piece of equipment, all being moved to a safer location." "Moved where?" "Somewhere they can't hurt anyone else." Another wave of disappearances swept through the fleet. This time, entire battle groups vanished, simultaneously. Thousands of ships erased in the span of heartbeats. The remaining hegemony vessels began to panic, breaking formation as their crews realized what was happening. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving emergency transmissions from across the fleet. Ships are reporting that their sister vessels are vanishing without warning. Some crews are attempting to abandon ship." General Vekthar's form blazed brighter with fury and desperation. "All remaining ships focus fire on the human transport. Destroy their command vessel." But when the surviving ships turned their weapons toward Admiral Chen's small transport, they found empty space. The vessel had vanished just like the human fleet, though Chen's image remained on their screens. "General," Chen said, her voice carrying a note of sadness, "you still don't understand what you're facing. This isn't a battle. This isn't even a war. This is a cleanup operation." "What do you mean?" Kethavar asked, though he was beginning to suspect he already knew. "The hegemony is a disease, Admiral. For 3 centuries, you've spread across the galaxy like a cancer, consuming everything in your path. We've tried diplomacy. We've tried warnings. We've even tried letting you exist in the hope that you might change. But some diseases can only be cured through amputation." The disappearances continued. By now, less than 50,000 ships remained of the once mighty Grand Fleet. The survivors huddled together in a desperate defensive formation, though they had no idea what they were defending against. "This is impossible," Vekthar muttered, his crystalline form flickering between colors as his emotional state destabilized. No species possesses this kind of power. Matter cannot simply be relocated. Matter can't, Chen agreed. But consciousness can. Every ship we've removed, every crew member we've relocated, they're all perfectly safe. They're just not in this dimension anymore. The implications hit Kethvar like a physical blow. You're moving entire ships to parallel dimensions? Pocket dimensions, to be precise. Small universes we've created specifically for this purpose. Your people will be comfortable there. We've provided everything they need to live full lives, but they will never again threaten another species with extinction. You're talking about imprisonment on a cosmic scale, Kethvar said. We're talking about justice, Chen replied. Every species the hegemony has destroyed, every world you've sterilized, every civilization you've erased, those crimes demand an answer. But we're not monsters, Admiral. We're not going to commit genocide to stop genocide. We're simply removing the problem. General Vekthar let out a sound that might have been laughter or screaming. You think this will stop the hegemony? There are other fleets, other armies. You cannot relocate an entire civilization. Chen's smile was patient, almost motherly. General, this isn't the only operation happening today. Right now, simultaneously across the galaxy, every hegemony world, every military installation, every ship and station is being relocated to safe dimensions. By the time this conversation ends, the hegemony will no longer exist in this reality. The tactical display confirmed her words. Status reports were flooding in from across hegemony space. Fleets vanishing, planets going dark, entire star systems becoming empty voids. It was happening everywhere at once, coordinated on a scale that defied comprehension. How? Kethvar whispered. How is this possible? 200 years of preparation, Admiral. 200 years of building technology you can't imagine. Developing capabilities beyond your understanding. While the hegemony was busy conquering, humanity was evolving. The Eternal Dominion shuddered as another wave of ships vanished around them. Now only a few thousand vessels remained of the Grand Fleet, floating like lost children in the vast emptiness of space. What happens to us? Kethvar asked. That depends on your choices, Chen replied. Those who are willing to live peacefully will be relocated to comfortable dimensions where they can build new lives without threatening others. Those who insist on continuing the hegemony's legacy of violence will be dealt with accordingly. General Vekthar stepped forward, his crystalline form blazing with desperate defiance. I am a soldier of the hegemony. I will never surrender to an inferior species. I know, Chen said sadly. That's why you're already gone. Vekthar looked down at himself in confusion. His crystalline body was becoming translucent, fading like morning mist. Within moments he had vanished completely, leaving only empty air where he had stood. The general has been relocated to a dimension where he can wage war to his heart's content, Chen explained. He'll find endless battles against opponents perfectly matched to his abilities. He'll never win, but he'll never lose either. For someone like him, it's probably the closest thing to happiness he could achieve. Kethvar found himself alone on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. The rest of the crew had vanished along with their general, leaving only the soft hum of the ship's systems and the distant stars. What about me? He asked. Chen's expression softened. You're different, Admiral. You tried to warn your superiors. You showed wisdom when others showed only arrogance. That's why you're going to carry one final message. To whom? The hegemony no longer exists. To the galaxy, Chen replied. To every species that might be tempted to follow the hegemony's path. To every civilization that thinks strength gives them the right to dominate others. Around them, the last few ships of the Grand Fleet were fading from existence. Soon Kethvar would be alone in the empty system with only Admiral Chen's transport for company. What is the message? He asked. That there are guardians now, Chen said. Watchers who will not allow another hegemony to rise. The galaxy is under new management, Admiral, and we take our responsibilities very seriously. The final ship vanished, leaving only the Eternal Dominion floating in space. Kethvar felt the profound loneliness of being the last survivor of a civilization that had once ruled half the galaxy. "Where will you send me?" he asked. "Wherever you choose," Chen replied. "You can join one of the peaceful dimensions where former hegemony citizens are building new lives. You can explore the galaxy and see what it becomes now that it's free from oppression. Or you can return to your homeworld and help your people understand what has happened." Kethvar considered his options. After a long moment, he nodded. "I'll go home. Someone needs to tell the story. Someone needs to explain what we became and what we lost." "A wise choice," Chen said. "Your ship has been equipped with everything you'll need for the journey. Safe travels, Admiral. And remember, the Watchers are always listening." The communication ended, leaving Kethvar alone with his thoughts and the weight of history. As he set course for home, he couldn't help but wonder what kind of galaxy humanity would create in the hegemony's absence. Behind him, the empty system held no trace of the Grand Fleet's passage. It was as if 300,000 ships had never existed at all. But somewhere, in dimensions beyond normal space, those ships and their crews continued to exist, not as conquerors or oppressors, but as something new, something better. And in the normal universe, free from the hegemony's shadow, 43 civilizations began to rebuild and flourish under the watchful eyes of their new guardians. The age of human dominance had begun. But unlike the hegemony, humanity ruled not through fear, but through the promise of protection for those who could not protect themselves. The galaxy would never be the same. Epilogue. The New Order. 5 years later. The Galactic Assembly. Met in a vast space station orbiting the star Vega, its chambers filled with representatives from over 200 species. Where once the hegemony's iron fist had kept civilizations in line through fear, now these worlds gathered voluntarily to discuss trade, science, and mutual defense. Admiral Kethvar stood at the podium, addressing the assembled delegates. Age had made him more thoughtful, less warlike. The years since the hegemony's disappearance had changed him profoundly. "My name is Kethvar," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "I was once an admiral in the hegemony fleet. I am here today to tell you what I witnessed, and to ensure that the mistakes of the past are never repeated." In the audience, beings of every conceivable form listened with rapt attention. Many had been slaves under hegemony rule. Others had lived in constant fear of conquest. All of them wanted to understand how their oppressors had vanished so completely. "The humans did not destroy the hegemony," Kethvar continued. "They relocated it. Every ship, every world, every citizen was moved to pocket dimensions where they could live without threatening others. It was the most comprehensive act of mercy in galactic history. A representative from the Crystalline Coalition raised a manipulator arm. Admiral, have you had any contact with these relocated populations?" "Yes," Kethvar replied. "I've been permitted to visit several of the peaceful dimensions. Many former hegemony citizens are thriving in their new homes. They have everything. They need worlds to explore, challenges to overcome, lives to build. They're becoming something better than they were." "And the violent ones?" asked a delegate from the Aquatic Republic. "They fight eternal wars in dimensions designed for conflict," Kethvar said simply. "They get exactly what they always wanted. Endless battle against worthy opponents. They're happy, in their own way." The chamber murmured with discussion. It was a solution that none of them had imagined possible. Justice without genocide, punishment without extinction. "Where are the humans now?" called out a representative from the Hive Collective. "Why don't we see their fleets patrolling our space?" Kethvar smiled, a gesture that would have been impossible during his days as a hegemony admiral. "Because they don't need to patrol. They're always watching, always ready to act if another threat emerges, but they prefer to remain in the background, letting us govern ourselves." As if summoned by his words, a new voice spoke from the chamber's communication system. It was Admiral Chen, looking exactly as she had 5 years before. "Greetings, Galactic Assembly," she said, her image appearing on screens throughout the station. "I apologize for the intrusion, but Admiral Kethvar mentioned our role as guardians. and I thought it was time for a status update. The chamber fell silent. Even after 5 years, the sight of a human representative still commanded absolute attention. The galaxy is thriving, Chen continued. Trade between worlds has increased by 3,000%. Scientific collaboration has led to breakthroughs that benefit all species. Wars between major powers have become extinct. By every measure that matters, galactic civilization is healthier than it's ever been. She paused, looking directly at the assembled delegates. But we're not done yet. There are still pockets of oppression, still species that think might makes right. When we encounter them, we offer the same choice we offered the hegemony. Change your ways, or be relocated somewhere you can't hurt others. A young delegate from a recently contacted world raised a tentacle. Admiral Chen, some of our people fear that humanity might become the next hegemony. What assurance can you give us that Earth won't use its power to dominate others? Chen's smile was warm and genuine. A fair question. The answer is simple. We don't want to rule anyone. Ruling is a full-time job, and we have better things to do with our time. She gestured, and the display behind her showed images of human worlds, not military installations or government buildings, but laboratories, art galleries, universities, and parks filled with families. Humanity's golden age began when we stopped trying to conquer others and started trying to understand them, Chen explained. We're explorers now, scientists and artists and philosophers. We have no interest in collecting tribute or enslaving populations. We just want to make sure everyone gets a chance to reach their potential. But what if someone threatens Earth directly? Pressed the delegate. Chen's expression didn't change, but somehow the temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. Then they would discover that our mercy has limits, she said quietly. We will protect the innocent at any cost, but we prefer to solve problems before they become threats. Admiral Kethvar stepped back to the podium. In my travels throughout the galaxy, I've seen the evidence of humanity's approach. They don't build monuments to their victories or demand recognition for their protection. They work quietly, behind the scenes, helping civilizations solve their own problems. Why? Asked the Crystalline Coalition representative. What do they gain from this? The same thing any gardener gains, Kethvar replied. The satisfaction of watching something beautiful grow. The session continued for hours, with delegates asking questions about the new galactic order, trade agreements, and scientific collaborations. But as the formal proceedings wound down, many representatives found themselves lingering, reluctant to leave. They had grown up in a galaxy ruled by fear. Now, for the first time in centuries, they lived in a universe where protection was freely given, where smaller civilizations could thrive without constant worry about conquest. As the chamber began to empty, Admiral Chen's image approached Kethvar's podium. Thank you for your continued service, Admiral, she said. Your testimony helps others understand what we're trying to build here. It's the least I can do, Kethvar replied. The hegemony caused immeasurable suffering. If my words can help prevent another such tragedy, then perhaps some good can come from our mistakes. The galaxy is lucky to have voices like yours, Chen said. Wisdom earned through experience is the most valuable kind. Admiral Chen, Kethvar said as her image began to fade. May I ask you a personal question? Of course. Do you ever worry that humanity will become what the hegemony was? That power will corrupt you as it corrupted us? Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries of careful consideration. Every day, she admitted. That's why we built safeguards into our own society. Checks and balances that prevent any individual or group from accumulating too much power. And that's why we stay connected to our conscience through the collective consciousness. No, one can make decisions in isolation, and if those safeguards fail, then we trust the galaxy to do to us what we did to the hegemony, Chen replied simply. Power should never be permanent, Admiral. The moment we forget that lesson is the moment we become the enemy. Her image faded, leaving Kethvar alone in the empty chamber. Through the transparent walls, he could see ships from dozens of worlds departing the station, returning to their homes to share what they had learned. The galaxy was at peace. Not the peace of the conquered, but the peace of the protected. It was a fragile thing, dependent on the wisdom and restraint of humanity's hidden guardians. But as Kethvar made his way back to his own ship, he felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: hope. The hegemony was gone, but the galaxy remained, and under humanity's quiet watch, it was becoming something beautiful. The stars themselves seemed brighter as he departed for home, carrying with him the memory of a civilization that had chosen mercy over vengeance, protection over domination. In the end, that might be humanity's greatest victory, not that they had won, but how they had chosen to win. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and for the first time in galactic history, everyone was free to explore them.